listening experience. VoxWave.com.
Check out all your favorite shows at VoxWave.com. On Mondays, we keep it moving with The Kim Show from 11 to 1 p.m. Then it's time for a change with Sherry and Mignon, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then in the end we win with Curtis, 8:15 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. On Tuesdays, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Start your afternoon with The Wealth Zone with Raymond Starks. Then it's Cooking with Flavors with Chef Flavors, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And treat yourself right with My Spa Bath and Body, hosted by Margaret Harris, 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Up next is Slick Daddy Ready, Heartbeat Congo Hour, rocking from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then on Wednesdays, you can't miss Impact the World with Cheryl Woods, 12 noon to 2 p.m. And then from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., we got Slick Talk with Oscar D and It's the Kid. Then from 8 to 9 p.m., we crank it up with Live Set Wednesdays, hosted by Reg Gaskins. And after that, 9:15 to 10:15 p.m., the BGKH Show with Dominion and Epic. And check out our Thursday lineup, starting with You, Math, and Me, hosted by George Randall from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Then from 7 to 9 p.m., the 640 Evening Show with DJ 640. And on Fridays, we start out with Peace in the Morning Show with Darius A. Stan, co-host Delicate Daryl Barnes, and Queen of Sudabed, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. From 10:30 to 11:30, the Hall Street Journal with Robert Hall and co-host Clarence Sanders. And after that, you know we gotta check in with Chanel's 3 Cents, 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Up next, from 3 to 4:30 p.m., Daryl Allen Hairston II Crime Victims Foundation Show with your host, Daryl Hairston. Then, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is The Rush Hour with DJ Drew and Janique. And from 9:15 to 11:15 p.m., you can't miss Different Mind Show with Bam 640 and DJ Andre Michael, co-host Hillary Banks. Then start out your Saturday mornings with the Healer Blues Show, hosted by Ron Jackson. After that, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m., the Hour of Power with Reverend Winters Rogers. Then, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon, it's time for Prayer, Praise, and Deliverance with Elder Thurman Gorman Jr. Four Sisters Live Talk, 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. Then every second Saturday, listen to Turning Dreams into Reality Talk Show with Tashika L. Green, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. After that, from 3 to 4 p.m., we walk in newness 24/7 with Missionary Antoinette. And don't miss, from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m., news, ULM News and Analysis, information, sports, Black history, with your host, news anchor Roderick Carter Withers, 4:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m.
Welcome back to In the End We Win with Curtis. My name is Curtis Austin, and I will be your host for the next hour. We are going to have an interesting show tonight. We've got a young man in the building with us who is going to teach us about what we thought we already knew. So I encourage you to sit back, relax, and if you're interested in calling in, as you know, the number is 240-719-2560. When you call in, you will be live. So I encourage you to turn down whatever the vehicle is that you're using to watch the show. Turn that down and listen strictly to your phone. Then you will be live with us. You'll be able to answer any questions. You'll be able to hear the response, etc. So I thank you for coming back. And tonight I'd like to welcome a personal friend, a sharp young man, Mr. Alex Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. So tonight, as I mentioned, we are going to talk a little bit about some things that we already knew as adults, as people in general, just about conducting our affairs. And Alex and I were talking earlier today, and I thought, what a great opportunity but to have him on the show tonight, because I think he can challenge all of us. And Alex, what I'd like to do is just have you to introduce yourself. Tell us what it is that you're doing, right? Because you're actually in college right now.
Correct.
So just speak to the viewers and let them know your age and where you attend school. Okay. And we're going to just jump right into our conversation tonight.
Okay.
Right.
So my name is Alex Johnson. I'm a junior going into my senior year at Towson University. I'm turning 21 next month in June. I'm very excited to be here. I'm doing a lot of exciting stuff financially, legally. I'm doing a lot of stuff just to try to expand and challenge myself to the things that I thought were possible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the reason why I wanted to have him on is because we don't have a lot of our youth at the age of 20 who are talking the way that you're talking.
Right.
Not so much that you talk with a sharp, crisp voice and you shake hands, strong, like when you shook hands when you came in the studio tonight. But the conversation about some of your goals and aspirations.
Right.
At 20 years old, I can't tell you that I was even committed to having my goals set. I knew what I wanted to do, but I can't truly say that I followed them and saw them come to fruition. Right. So if you would just give our viewers a little snapshot or a little bit of input on what it is that you aspire to do.
The biggest thing is basically financial freedom. I want to be financially retired by the time I turn 25. Some of the things that we're doing is actually stock markets. We're studying stocks, we're studying options, cryptocurrency, we're in that as well. I'm doing some legal paperwork that I'm trying to basically study the Constitution to understand what it is that we're actually getting ourselves involved into. I'm doing things like basically basic commerce of buying low, selling high. We're doing something with Amazon where you can essentially find trends that are people are following.
Sure.
And then you can basically attack that market in an aggressive way. So we're just kind of getting a broad spectrum. We're also doing real estate as well. We're getting into that, and also Uber as well. So
Uber. You're an Uber driver?
Turn 21 next month, so after that, I'll try to be doing that as well. So It's really just a lot of the times people my age have a lot of free time, and a lot of people choose to play Xbox or PlayStation, go out with friends. Me, I still do some of that stuff, but more of the time I kind of dedicate my time to learning new tricks and new avenues to finding different sources of income, because adding a new source of income will never hurt you.
That's the thought process right there that I thought you all needed to hear. This young man is thinking about in his spare time. And you already have a job, though.
Yep, I have a job.
And you're in college.
Full-time student, full-time employee at this current time.
But you also find that you have free time. And in that free time, though, you're not interested in partying, hanging out, and let's say
I mean, from time to time, I'll still do it. I still like to enjoy myself. I don't want to be a hermit and stuck in my room the entire time. But there are most of the times I will say that because I'm a morning person, I'm already up at 7 in the morning. It's just how I am.
Okay.
So as soon as I get up, I have a business partner, Maurice Crowell, that I talk to. He's actually my business partner in a group we have called MTIG, Mill Ticket Investment Group. And essentially at 7 in the morning, we're studying the market, the stock market, to see which ones are going to have a positive day, which ones are going to have a negative day in the stock market. And you can make money going both ways with stocks. Okay. And then, like you said, I do go to school. I'm actually about to start summer classes next Tuesday. So classes during the day, work during the day, and then when we come back, we're brainstorming as soon as we get back, brainstorming on what's next, what's the next venture, what's the next avenue of getting money, and then if we find that venture, how do we see it through fruition? So it's basically setting the milestone of, let's say, $1 million. Well, you have to figure out how you're going to do that, and the way that I do it is kind of micro-step it. I divide everything into, if I can get to 500,000, then I can get to $1 million. Well, how do I get to that? Divided by half again, keep dividing it. So it's like now I get to the point where I'm not seeing myself trying to get to $1 million. I'm just trying to focus on getting to $10, then the 20, then the 50, and so on, so forth.
Where did this thought process for you come at being such a young age?
I always knew there was something more to life. I knew that a lot of the things that we wanted, the goods and services that we wanted, required money. So I knew that I had to find a way to get those things. A lot of the times I wanted shoes or clothes. A lot of the times I wanted the expensive shoes and clothes. And I knew that I couldn't just keep asking my parents for money because I was very self-motivated to try to get that money for myself so that I can rightfully say and proudly say I did that. So it started at a young age, and then it kind of spiraled into just continuously doing that. And one of the things, or a couple of things that I'm wearing is these 2 bracelets to always remind myself of how I got started. The red and green one represents a group I'm in called BMA from Bowie State. And I was under the leadership of Brother Shorter, and he basically taught me the way of how to speak confidently, to look a man in his eyes, and to make sure that you enunciate everything that you have to say.
Awesome.
So I coupled that with Carrot Bars and the leadership that I established in that under Brian Battle, Kevin Thompson, and Mr. Michael Dalco. They kind of showed me a new way of living, because before that I was just doing the conventional way, going to school, trying to get good grades, trying to get a good job, retire off that job in 40 years. And hopefully being able to retire happily with that. But then I talked to them, and they showed me a way of basically leveraging your time, using other people's time to make you money, which is what all CEOs do.
You guys got your pen and your paper out yet? Funny story. You may remember. You probably remember. Maybe not too long ago. I think 14 or so years ago, we moved into a neighborhood, and you happened to come running through the woods on our side of the house, and my son, that you know, obviously, you guys became really good friends.
Right.
Wintertime came, and we had 4-wheelers, and it snowed, and we all
went shoveling.
Gathered our little 4-wheelers together, had our shovels, whatever else it was we had, and we went through our neighborhood, and you guys made some decent money.
Exactly. I was just talking to him about that today too.
Oh, really? And that just, is powerful to see that small situations, moments just like that, can springboard anyone, not just a young man, but anyone into another level of their thought processes. Right. Because finances, as far as I'm concerned, are really uber important, in today's society. Right. So you mentioned that you wanted to be retired at 25.
Correct.
What are some of the vehicles that you are using to get you to that point?
Some of the things I mentioned before: stocks, options, cryptocurrency, real estate. legal paperworks that I study as well. Uber is one of them. And one of the major things that I make sure is that my job, the one thing that everyone stresses the most, is the thing that brings in the least income. I want to make sure that my job is just the ultimate safety net for everything. It's just something that is just a guaranteed paycheck. And I make sure that all of my money that I get to reinvest is double, triple, quadruple the amount that I would get for my job. So it's just constantly trying to find avenues to be better. And one of the things that my business partner Mo said is that if it's not above $1,000 profit within that time frame, we're not interested. Whether it's a week or $1,000 in a month, if it's not minimum $1,000 and setting goals like that, we don't want to do it.
So at what point then do you decide to walk away from your job? Because when you talk to a lot of self-employed individuals, a job just doesn't fit into the equation.
For me, the minute that I would leave my job is when I can make money in my sleep comfortably. To know that I have enough money stashed away, not in a bank, because a bank is how you lose money, actually.
What? Say that again?
Money in a bank is how you lose money. Because if you think about it, you have inflation at, 3%. And at best, you can get 0.1% or whatever amount that it is. So at best, you're losing 2 point whatever percent while having your money, and you think that, I'm actually able to have my money grow and gain interest. It doesn't work that way because it'll never outpace interest and inflation, and it's designed that way. So for me, I have to make money in my sleep, and I have to be able to, my father emphasized being able to make money even when you don't have the capability of moving. Let's say if for whatever reason you're an athlete, your main source of income is from your basic ability to be, or your athleticism. He emphasized that one day your athleticism is going to wear away.
That's correct.
But your mind is what you're going to be able to keep for the longest. So he made sure that I understood that principle. And what I'm going to do is to make sure that anything that I'm doing to make money, I can use it to my advantage just from using my mind, whether it's speaking to someone, managing someone, or just writing something out, because that's stuff I can do in the comfort of my own home.
20 years old, guy. That's awesome. So I just lost my train of thought, but I'm mesmerized by the fact that you are so in tune
Thank you.
to all that. We were talking earlier, and one of the most powerful books a person can read to learn about our banking system is The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Exactly.
By G. Edward Griffin, I think is his last name. I actually have had that book for years. I've read, I've put it down, I've gone back to it. It's a book about yay thick.
Okay.
And it can be a difficult read. But I can assure you it enlightens you on so much about our banking system that will challenge your thought processes about how you conduct yourselves every day. So tonight's show is titled What You Thought You Knew You May Not Really Know.
Right.
Because you talked, and you mentioned it earlier, you mentioned legalese.
Right.
And I want you to delve into that a little bit.
Okay.
Help our viewers to understand exactly what you mean when you say that.
Okay. Starting with the word legalese. Legalese is actually a different language in itself, because a lot of times we kind of put it in layman terms and call it lawyer talk. It actually is a separate language in itself, because there are certain things that we think have certain meanings, but really they have different meanings. I even downloaded on my iBooks. And basically, one of the things I always tell people is, what do you think a person is? To you, what is a person?
What is a person? You're asking me what is a person? an individual, a human being, a physical body.
Right. So when you look up the legal definition, because a lot of the time you can't just look up the definition because you can just get whatever. You have to look up the legal definition. From the legal standpoint, a definition of a person is not a human being, because you can have things on your person. You can have an artificial person. That's going really deep into the legalese part of it. But essentially, you just have to, a lot of people don't read. And just plain and simple is we're taught to skim things from a early age. I remember when I was in 5th grade, we had the reading test, the reading comprehension test. And essentially what it was to me at the time, and I can still remember it, is how fast could I read? And I think I was reading at least 90 words per minute. I was reading extremely fast, and I was probably only retaining about 20 to 40% of the information that I was reading. But we still do it even with today's technology. And I'll give you the best example, terms and agreement. No one reads terms and agreement because they just, essentially what you do is skim through the bottom and then press accept. And you just say, well, whatever happens, what happens. And one of the things that even teachers say is, how can you sign something that you don't know, because you could have just signed the first kid away. Even though they're joking, that's a very stern lesson, because you don't really know what you're getting into. And a lot of times, where a lot of people are in the situation that they are, and I'm at fault myself, I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody, we get into a lot of situations because we don't read.
Sure.
And so when you have to read a lot of the stuff that you're getting into, whether it's contracts, a lot of stuff is contracts. If you're getting into anything minor or major, you have to go line by line and actually read the words, because certain words have different definitions. We may think it has one definition, but you have to go back to the time that word was created to get the full scope of that word. Okay. So that kind of goes into the legalese aspect of things.
Okay. So I guess there's a reason why they put things in the fine print.
Exactly. They can even put things out in the open. Like I said, the word person you thought was a human being, but I can show you when you go to Google, it's not. If you go to legal definition of person, it's not. So they can put things out in the open and kind of deceive you about, deceive you because you don't know what you're reading. And a lot of times, actually, one of the things that lawyers use is a book called Black Law's Dictionary. Anytime a lawyer gets a contract presented in front of him, the first thing he's going to pull out is Black Law's Dictionary.
Why is that?
Because the Black Law's Dictionary has the actual legal definition of things. They're the only dictionary that I've seen in law libraries. I actually went to the law library like 2 or 3 times and pulled out the Black Law's Dictionary, because that's the real definition of words. And there's a couple other dictionaries, I forget what they're called, but you want to look at dictionaries before 1933, and The Creature from Jekyll Island kind of goes into that as to why you want to look at things from prior to 1933.
So, what's your major in college?
Exercise science.
Exercise science. What does that mean? It sounds like something like movement of the,
exactly.
the body.
It's under the kinesiology.
Kinesiology. Okay.
So essentially, I was highly intrigued with movements. I was highly intrigued with basically fitness. So I wanted to study anatomy. At one point, I wanted to be a part-time trainer, nutritionist, and yoga instructor, because I was just mesmerized by the body and the way that it moved.
So, but while in school, though, you spend a lot of time studying and reading law.
Yep.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Why is that?
Law is just interesting to me, because it's like, what else are they hiding from you?
Okay.
What are they putting in these so-called statutes? What are they putting in these so-called laws? And what are they putting in today's society that affects you? Because law is what affects you more than a lot of the things that you're going to learn in school. Because a lot of these schools are liberal arts schools. They're teaching you basic general stuff. And that kind of goes into the pressure system, which is what I was talking to you earlier about, where it's just kind of giving you that cookie cutter system. So I study that stuff to kind of diversify myself, and it kind of sharpens you up, because every time you look at something that's legal, you're getting new information that you weren't exposed to before, and you have to kind of challenge yourself to understand what's going on. And you can apply that same technique into any field that you're studying.
Okay. So what do you plan to do with this knowledge that you find from these law books?
Just apply it to everyday life. You can apply it to contracts, whether you're buying a car, whether you're buying a house, managing finances. They basically go hand in hand. Finance and law go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. So you can use that information anywhere you go. It's just up to you when you use it.
Okay. So we were talking earlier about challenging what's written in these agreements, including our the cars that we sign for, mortgages, and so on. And you seem to believe that they can be challenged.
Correct.
To the point where you can perhaps get out of paying for it. Now, I'm not suggesting anyone don't do this,
right,
but I'd like to hear your philosophy, if you will, without going too deep into it. But just give us a snapshot of what it is that you.
Right. Well, to start, I do not offer legal advice. It's just my intuition and my philosophies. And I also don't believe in not paying for something. If you get something, then you have to pay for it. However, there is one thing that everyone should at least try to start with. It's called House Joint Resolution 192.
House Joint Resolution 192, which says what?
It's kind of hard to say it on the air, but essentially it's going into bankruptcy. And I'll leave it at that. So I want the viewers to actually go out and read it rather than spoon feeding them everything.
Okay.
So essentially, a lot of the stuff that we thought we had to keep paying for is basically all under a fraudulent system. Essentially, there are things like accord and satisfaction. Discharging is another one of the things that I listen to all the time on another podcast, where essentially they basically took away the value of the dollar. Everyone knows that the value of the dollar is almost worthless. We say it all the time. And essentially, when they took that away, they have to give you something back to counteract it. So the government gave the ability to discharge certain things, whether it's a car note, a phone bill, or a house note, or a mortgage. So you just have to pick and choose. You can discharge pretty much everything. It's whether or not you're going to put the time and effort into it to understand what it is. Because a lot of the stuff I've come across, a lot of people that I've explained it to believe that it's fraud. It's not right. But everything I do is pulled right from the Constitution. And that's another thing that we have to read is the Constitution, because there's a lot of stuff in there, buried in there, or even in plain sight that states that what is being done to us is wrong. And that's where we get the ability to challenge that information. Like you said, like a car note, you can challenge that with accord and satisfaction, which is UCC 3-310 and also UCC 3-311. Reading those line by line, word by word, you can challenge those, the car note after 3 months because it's become a public debt.
Sure.
So that kind of stuff can always be challenged. It's just a matter of understanding and taking the time out of your day to really go and read that stuff.
Do the research.
Correct.
So, ladies and gentlemen, by no means are we suggesting that you go out and do this, but I thought it was a great conversation that we had earlier today. I was more than anything else, I was shocked at how well he spoke, how confident it was that you spoke about the topic.
Right.
Because that confidence generally indicates that a person is knowledgeable, right? Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent information, at least you've spoken it at some point,
right,
to the point where now it's like ingrained, it's in you, and I was impressed by that. If you have any questions or any comments you'd like to make any suggestions, or you'd like to call in, please do so at 240-719-2560. Do us a favor, turn down how you're watching the show, and please listen directly to your phone. We are open. You will be live, and you'll jump right into our conversation. So we encourage you to call in if you have any questions or any comments. So Have you begun to try this method of discharging?
Not. Well, yes, I have. In a nutshell, I was helping a friend who basically had a PayPal credit card that he had charges on, and it went into collections. And this is going back into what I'm saying. If you have a debt, pay the debt. But you pay the debt to the original creditor. So if I borrow money from you and then you say I owe it to someone else, I didn't agree to pay someone else.
Okay.
Because I don't know that person. That person is a third party. I agreed to pay you back. So the same principle works in regular legal finances. So he got a PayPal credit card and it went into collections and it was sold to a third party debt collector.
Okay.
On the letter, most of the times when you have someone trying to collect debt from you, they'll say it right on the letter in a conspicuous statement saying, we are a third party debt collector. Correct.
Sure.
So essentially, what you want to do is not refuse to pay. Don't refuse to pay. You ask for them to validate the debt. You want to make sure that what they're doing is according to the rules. And a lot of times the rules is the Uniform Commercial Code. That's what
UCC.
Correct. That's what all businesses have to abide by.
Governed by, sure.
Correct. As well as, and that's stemmed from the Constitution. So essentially, what you want to do is ask them to validate the debt. Validate who they say they are, validate that they have the privilege or the opportunity to ask you for the debt. And validate,
authority, too.
Authority, yes. So they validate everything, and if they don't, then you, according to the Fair Debt Collections Practice Act,
FDCPA,
exactly, you can ask for the amount back because of, like, basically it's like punitive damages for them doing fraudulent actions. So doing things like that is another way to challenge basically what happens. So to answer your question, we sent out a third-party debt collector letter, and I love to quote where I got it from, the source. I listened to this podcast called Hindsight Radio under Jonah Bay and Akeem El and Joey Bounce, and they basically helped me along the way to understand what that is. And so we sent out the letter, and then most times if a letter or something goes into collections, you have to set up a payment plan, pay it back over time. Because that's just the way things are supposedly are. So we sent out the letter, and what happened was they reassigned the debt because they couldn't validate all the stuff. And we gave them 30 days. We didn't give them a short amount of time. We didn't say 2 days. We gave them 30 days. They responded back within a week saying,
oh, wow,
we're hands off. We don't want to deal with it anymore. It's someone else's problem, and we're going to let them handle it. So another thing that I've done is called an injunction.
Okay, well, let me take a step back. So what happened in that case with the PayPal situation? Because when they turn it over to a third party collector and then you dispute the authenticity or the authority that third party has to collect on that debt because that's not who the original debt was secured by.
Correct.
Right? What happens then? Does that third party continue to fight and say, yes, I'm in authority to collect, or do they just say no and, just give in? Well,
you can also send out something that Jonah Bay also supplies, which is, or talks about. It's called a no-contact contract. Essentially, you're stipulating that you no longer want to be contacted by them because in the FDCPA, it states that the minute that you request that they don't contact you anymore, they can no longer contact you. So you just stipulate that you no longer want to be contacted, and everything is done in threes. Okay. Let's say you forget to pay your light bill. After 3 months, what do? They turn it off. If you fail to pay a car note 3 times, take it away. House, same thing. They evict you. So what essentially is the first time you send something out, a legal document, it is a notice. The second time is an opportunity to cure because they've gotten the first one. And the third time is defaulting them out. So essentially what happened is when you send out that third-party debt collector letter or when you send out the no-contact contract, 3 times they are defaulted out. And any time that they violate those contracts, what you can do is go into court and have a summary judgment against them, ruling in your favor because you've done the legal process. And that's called a due process.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So Now you've done this yourself.
Correct.
And most people can do this, and this is much like, I mean, that's no different than what I've done for my own person, because I've been in the credit arena virtually my entire working career.
Right.
And I don't have any debt collectors, however, any collectors contacting us, but at one time, early on, we did, and there were some simple things that I needed to do to correct some of the information that was reporting on our credit report. And just as you say, it's just a matter of writing letters, because when we turn to these agencies that can help us, that say they're going to help us clear up our credit, that's all that they're going to do. And I think, just like as you mentioned, we are so lazy. I don't think you said it like that, but we are.
Right.
We are so lazy that we'd much rather pay someone to do what we can do ourselves. And that's all it requires is doing just that, writing letters, doing a little bit of research, and sending the stuff out.
Right. And I want to emphasize to everyone that I'm no one special. I just took the time that I had, my free time, and devoted it to understanding what I'm getting myself into. There are people who are going to say, well, I have kids, or I have other priorities that I have to handle. By all means, handle those priorities. But the podcast that I listen to, I hear people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 70s saying that they're able to do this information. So it's just a matter of time of just devoting your time to doing it and understanding what you're getting yourself into, because the same way that you got yourself into debt, you can get out of it. It's paperwork. That's all it is. Paperwork.
Interesting. Now, you also mentioned, because you have a pretty nice car, man. How many cars have you had?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. About 4. 4.
At 20?
Yeah, 4 since my junior year of high school. 2 of them were because of my mother, and then I bought 2 myself.
Right.
And hopefully I'm planning on buying a 3rd one very soon.
So the car that he pulled up to today was pretty decent, pretty nice.
Thank you.
Got the pipes on it. It's loud. It's fast.
Like to make an appearance in an entrance.
Okay. But you also talked about being able to get out of traffic tickets.
Correct. The injunction.
And that just totally blew my mind, because I was more so concerned about what's going on in our society right now with, the brutality and things like that. And I know, that there are some adults who can feel challenged by a smart, or I'm not even going to say smart, by an intelligent young man. If that young man appears to be more intelligent than, let's say, that police officer, or even I'm not even going to go there just yet, but if that young man appears to be more intelligent than that adult has the tendency of feeling some kind of way, and he or she might want to, raise up and then enforce their authority, right?
Correct.
So when you mentioned that earlier, and you're talking about getting out of speeding tickets, traffic stops, and you said you don't get pulled over because of certain things that you have and documents, paperwork that you have, that was the first thing that came to mind, because it's simple stuff like that has gotten folks that look like us into trouble.
Correct.
And that's a concern for me, because I don't want to see anything happen to you first and foremost.
Okay.
Right?
You corrected me, and I appreciate that. You still can get pulled over, because there's no paperwork that's going to stop someone who's having a masculinity complex or authority complex and is just having a bad day. Nothing's going to stop a bullet if it's going to come your way. So what the injunction does is basically state what you know, because everybody states that I know my rights. And then most of the times, what I've seen recently, police just yell at the person. If they're yelling, if they're in a confrontation, they're going to yell at them. And they don't do anything until someone brings up the Constitution or I know my rights. And then that's when the person you see just gets dropped. So a lot of times we think we know our rights, but we don't necessarily know them. And what the injunction is a contract stating your rights, because it doesn't matter. You have to give due notice for them to be able to do that, because what police are trained to do is, I believe, called verbal judo. They kind of pick games with you to kind of get you to fall under their jurisdiction. And once you fall under a police's jurisdiction, they can do whatever they want with you, in theory. And so what the injunction does is it's an estoppel of basically unconstitutional activity. A lot of the stuff, even in the Constitution, you can look this up. Like I said, you want to look it up before 1933. It's called ex post facto law. EX space POST facto FACTO law. And essentially what that's saying is any statute that is made after whatever constitution that you use, because you're allowed to pick and choose what constitution you use, because that's where the power of the Constitution stems from, or it gives the power to the people. So and we can alter and abolish and amend the Constitution at any time. So anything after, I choose the 1867 Constitution. Anything after, any statute after that Constitution is ex post facto law, which means it falls under special law. So you have two laws. You have general law and you have special law. General law is derived strictly from the Constitution, and that is constitutional law. That is what all judges, lawyers, people of authority, public figures have their oath to. That's the only thing that they uphold. They don't uphold a lot of stuff because they don't have to, because they took an oath to the Constitution. If it falls under special law is basically man-made law that they just kind of went along with it and kind of picked and chose what they wanted to use from the Constitution. So it's not the full thing. It's kind of like a pseudo law. And essentially, a lot of these laws that are like speed limits let's stick with speed limits. That falls under special law because it applies to certain persons. It's not a general thing. You don't see one speed limit nationwide.
It's not universal.
Correct. Okay. So if it's not universal nationwide, it's not constitutional. So a lot of the things is, like I said, the injunction is an estoppel to unconstitutional things. And some of the things like speed limits are unconstitutional because they're to different persons and groups of people. I can't remember the exact meaning of special law, but I had to look that up. But that's at the basis what it is. It's just an estoppel to stop unconstitutional things like unreasonable searches and seizures. You got the 5th and 6th Amendments. And a lot of times when a cop pulls you over, he has to have a warrant to pull you over. It has to be describing your car in detail because that's what the Constitution states. And if he doesn't, it's unconstitutional. So that's just one of the things in the injunction. There's multiple things that it states. But it's just basically to stop unconstitutional dealings that a cop is doing or whoever's doing it. It doesn't have to be. It just has to be a public figure.
Have you had to use that technique or method? Have you used it? Not that you had to use it, but have you used it?
What happened with me was that I was driving home one day, and essentially there was a police officer that was following another car, and I could tell he was a police officer. So I'm just going about my normal day. So I'm driving, and then he immediately pulls in behind me. So anytime as a black man, I know that if a police car pulls up on me and is right behind my license plate, I can tell he's running my plates. It's just it's just the world we live in. I'm not saying all police do it, but that's just
majority of them.
Correct.
They get up close enough to be able to read your tags, and they run it while they're
So I could tell he was running my tags, and I'll admit I wasn't going the speed limit.
You was not.
I was not.
You wasn't below the speed limit. You was
correct.
Higher than the speed limit.
A little bit.
All right.
It's going downhill. Let's say that.
Okay.
So I could tell he was running my tags, and then he just pulled off. And it was crazy because most people would be like, "Oh no, then you weren't doing anything wrong." No. I had the feeling that it could have very well done. He very well could have done that. I have tints that are a little bit darker than the average tint, and as you said earlier, I have a loud car, so it draws a lot of attention to it. So when he got behind my car, it felt like, all right, here it comes. But then he just pulls off, and I've had that happen to me actually 2 or 3 times before. And this wasn't until after I put the paperwork in 3 times.
So what is it that you're referring to?
The injunction.
The injunction.
Correct.
So why then are you saying that they did not pull you over when you sat here and said that you were going above the speed limit?
So basically, from what I've heard from friends is that a police officer's computer has a system where essentially it's green, yellow, and red. Green means that they're in the okay. They don't have any traffic tickets or anything against them.
Violations?
Correct.
Or outstanding warrants or anything?
Correct. The yellow means that they do. Red means that do not pull them over. And that was a quote that I heard from a friend say that he heard an officer say to him, do not pull them over. So that's, when he said that to me, it was confirmation that the injunction does work, or it could work. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say it does, but when the police officer who pulled behind me did it, because there was no other cars around me. It was just me. And well, it was one. The second time, there was no cars around me. He just pulled up right behind me. When he pulled off, that's when I knew it worked, because it happened twice. And most times they would know, because you can't see into my car at all. Mm-hmm. So I knew that it had to have been something other than me, because I knew I wasn't just driving 10 miles under the speed limit, not doing anything. It had to have been something extra. And the only thing that I've done extra is that injunction.
Mm-hmm. So that injunction then is paperwork that's registered. It's down at the courthouse, and apparently all police officers, it's in the system for them to see it.
Mm-hmm. It's not at the courthouse until you send it into the courthouse. Mm-hmm. But what you do have to do is send it to the sheriff. The sheriff is basically the top person in the county. When it comes to a lot of stuff. If you get evicted, who comes? The sheriff. Mm-hmm. So you have to send it to the sheriff. You have to send it to everybody in charge, and then you do have to send it to the Supreme Court Justice, because in Maryland, the highest court is the Supreme Court. So you do have to give everybody notice, and then once you give everyone notice, that's when it goes into the system, not just sending it to the court one time. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So you believe that kept you out of a couple of speeding tickets?
Correct.
And you live by it?
Firmly. Firmly. And I will, any day, have anyone challenge me. As long as they've done the paperwork right and the process right, anyone can challenge it.
Wow.
And I've also had, it wasn't me who tried it first. I had family friends try it before me. And they're the ones who told me that it worked. They were saying that they were going 80 and 50. Well, sometimes quite a few people are guilty of going 80 and 50. Not everyone's perfect. Mm-hmm. So they were going purposely 80 or 90 and 50 just to test it out. Now, by no means am I going to say drive recklessly, but what they did was to test it out. They did go above the speed limit. Mm-hmm. Police officers pulled them over and ran the license, ran the tag, asked for the license, came back to the car, to the patrol car, ran the tags, ran everything, and then walked back to the car and told them have a good day. So that's their testimony into it. Me, I just knew it because no police officer is just going to get behind a car like mine.
That's definitely breaking the law, the speed limit or whatever.
The speed limit, not the law.
Okay, the speed limit.
Correct.
Okay,
because the law is not a full law; it's a statute.
Okay, so so you were clearly exceeding the speed limit. You had the limo tent, if you will, on the vehicle.
Give or take, yep.
And they didn't pull you over.
Correct.
Okay.
In that situation, yes.
In that moment. Okay. And that's what you're living by.
Like I said, I'm not condoning
folks to go out and try it.
Correct. And recklessly try it.
Okay.
But there are certain situations. What it is a safety net. And that's what I use it for, is a safety net. Because, like I said, there's going to be times where you're going above 12 miles an hour over the speed limit. And it just so happens that the police officer needs to meet a quota for a certain time frame.
Sure.
And he's going to see you going 13 miles an hour above the speed limit, and now he's got you. So,
Right. So now, one of the vehicles that you're also using to get you to that point where you can retire is you're doing a lot of the research for companies, clients,
well,
where they're paying you
not necessarily.
X%.
What I'm doing is pointing them the way to understanding what it is that I'm learning, and when they understand it, then I kind of guide them in a certain direction to what it is that I felt was beneficial for their situation, if that makes sense.
Okay. Is there a fee attached to that?
No. I mean, if someone would like to make a donation to help my situation, then by all means, donate to me and help me out in my times of need.
Okay. And then you also have, what is it, Carrot Gold?
Karatbars.
Karatbars.
Yep. That is,
that?
Essentially, it's a savings plan. And a lot of people my age don't really think of a savings plans for the future.
Sure.
Because they think that we're young forever, we're not going to need retirement. Or if I do need it, then I'll do it in a 401k, which is also very risky. 401k is very risky as well because my mentor, Mr. Brian Battle, he had a 401k as well, and he lost almost half of his portfolio because of the housing market crash in 2008. So Karatbars is just a savings plan that we use to convert some of our fiat currency, paper dollars, into gold.
Some of our who currency?
Fiat.
Fiat.
So
explain that to our viewers.
So fiat currency is essentially currency that isn't backed by anything. The U.S. dollar it isn't backed by anything. It's just continuously printed, which is why we have inflation. So essentially, I'm taking and you can even look it up on the Federal Reserve website where they say that the U.S. dollar is the biggest liability in the U.S. economy.
That's why a lot of other countries are backed by gold and...
They tried to, what was his name? From I think it's Gaddafi, tried doing that.
Gaddafi.
And that is why he is no longer where he's at, because he tried having something that was backed by gold and resources, which would have basically wiped out all other currencies because they're not backed by a lot of stuff. So what Karatbars is I take my dollars, that is a liability, and exchange it. I'm not going to take 100% of my earnings from my paycheck I'm going to take whatever I can afford, whether it's $20, whether it's $60 or $100. I'm going to take that dollar, convert it into gold, and it's 999.9 pure gold, and I'm going to convert it into gold. And essentially what I do is I share that information with other people. And when they come in and feel as though it's the same thing that they're looking for, that they're trying to start a savings plan as well, then I get a referral bonus in euros. So now I get gold and euros, two currencies that are basically stronger than the U.S. dollar. And that's just allowing me to have residual income, and that's the basis of it. Always having residual income. I talked about making money in my sleep. So that's just one of the avenues that we're choosing, and so far it's been pretty well. I was able to go down with our upline team, Team Freedom, led by Mr. Battle and Mr. Thompson, and along with my business partner Mo and MTIG. And so we went down to Georgia. This was like 2-3 months after we got into it. And we were able to meet a very powerful man, Mr. Michael Dalcoa, who I consider a mentor as well. And I was able to speak on stage down there as well, and talk to a lot of people and really get the insight, because this is something that I was new to. I got started into network marketing in January, and I didn't really know what it was, because most of the times when you hear network marketing, you hear pyramid scheme. But Mo told me the thing that blew my mind. He said a job fits more of the pyramid scheme model than network marketing. And the way
you have a CEO or a president.
So the CEO needs help. He can't do everything, so he gets the execs, and the execs need help with theirs, so they get general managers. Managers get district managers, and then they get the employees. So that kind of forms that triangle right there. But the thing in a job is you can't work your way to the top within a year, the same way that you can work in network marketing. If network marketing, let's say you get in at the same time. Network marketing, you're at the bottom. A job, you're at the bottom, right? Your entry levels. But if the top person above you or you yourself bring in someone, then that person in the job is at the same playing field as you. But in network marketing, that person is underneath of you, allowing you to leverage your time to allow you to make money with their efforts. So now it's two people allowing you to make income rather than the one in the job. So if that process continues and you keep bringing people in and the job, then you just get more coworkers. You don't go up to manager, you don't go up to general manager or the CEO.
Sure.
But in network marketing, you do. You are able to set your own hours. I can talk about it when I want to. Like right now, I'm talking about it and I'm working. And you can do it when you want to and save when you want to and do everything is on your accord. And that's what I really want to emphasize with people is just finding different ways to make money. Don't be satisfied with the job.
Don't be satisfied with the job.
The job is the last thing you should do.
Okay.
Because that is, Mr. Michael Dalcoe said it best. He said, you're working 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life to retire on nothing. And that really hit home, not to me, essentially because I haven't gotten to that age, but because when I really thought about it, he's right. You go into 40 hours a week to a job that you may not, or you wake up at a time that you may not want to wake up at, to go to a job that you may or may not want to go to talk, be around people you may or may not like, to work hours you may or may not like, and you're told when to get hungry and when to get unhungry and get back to work. And you do that for 40 years of your life, and then by the time you retire, you may have a couple $1,000s saved up. You may have, let's say, even $100,000 that at that time. But because of inflation, that $100,000 is not worth that $100,000 in your 401k.
Sure.
It may be only worth $60,000. But so when he said that, it really hit home because it's like we really do devote so much time into this job that's really not going to give us the lifestyle that we want to live because a lot of people are living on ends meet. That's why you see a lot of people who are retired working at Walmart, working at McDonald's or something. Me as a young person should not see somebody over 50 working at McDonald's or Walmart. They should be, the American dream is to retire happily. But due to certain to current times, that's not true. That's not possible.
It's not possible.
You can even look at it in college. My mother said that when she went to college, she paid $4,000 a year to go to Bowie State. That's a meal plan for 1 year. No, that's $1,000 less than a one meal plan for a year at Towson University.
Today.
Right. So you get to eat, but that's not books, that's not tuition, that's not anything else. So you can see that the growth is astronomical in the tuition rates or the inflation rates and everything and living. So what we do in Karatbars is, like I said, leverage people's time. And now it's not just me working to make me money. It's 5, 10,
so the
20.
gold. So the gold. I'm definitely interested in hearing about gold. So the gold, does the individual actually? Do you actually hold the gold? Do you actually get the gold, or how does that work?
I'll take up things out of my pocket, but essentially it's right here. So we get it grams at a time. It's one of these. I just got this wallet today, so do excuse me. So yeah, it's in here somewhere, but essentially we do get it, and it is embossed into a card. Here it is. So as you can see, it is right here. It is 999.9 pure gold. It actually won the presentation award, which is why you see it in this card. It's not a credit card at all. Kind of think of it, you can see that right there. You can't feel the gold because it has like a protective film over it so it doesn't get too scratched up and damaged. But that's a gram right there. I have 5 grams stored for me for free by Karatbars. So you can get a gram, 2.5 grams, 5 grams, or even lower denominations like 0.1, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6 grams of cash gold. So that's one of the things we do emphasize is that, yes, you can get the gold.
So what do? You amass thousands of those cards, those things, and
that's true wealth right there, because that's going to, this right here, as compared to this right here, a gram is worth roughly $40. So this 10 years from now, more than likely will either stay at $40 or go up in value. However, if I had two $20 bills, $40, right? That would no longer be, there's no way, because of inflation, that would be
will
$40.
stay at $40, and it definitely won't go more than $40.
Correct. So that's why I tell people is just exchange some of your U.S. dollars for gold and keep it. Because a lot of people say, well, I'm going to sell it. Why would you sell it? You just converted paper into gold, and now you're converting it back and getting less for it, which doesn't make sense.
Okay.
People fail to realize that with gold, you can, if you have a certain amount of gold, you could be considered a bank because you can give loans that are backed by
the gold.
Correct.
Right.
You can get a house because you can use this gold as collateral to getting that loan.
Interesting. 20 years old, right?
21 next month.
I was going to say, you sure you're not 29 going on 30 and
Nope.
you just amassed all of this information?
No, it's a lot of the times people my age and people of the older generations have a disconnect because they feel as though the older generation thinks that the younger generation isn't listening.
Okay.
And the younger generation thinks that the older generation is just dictating and trying to tell them what to do all the time. One of the things that we were talking about earlier is that people my age have to be on phones. And it's very hard for us to focus on one thing because the technology that we have our attention span is like that because we have to focus on so many little things and we multitask so well. So when someone, let's say if your age is talking to me and I'm on my phone, I can still hear you and I'm processing everything you're saying. But because of technology, I have to have two things going on at once. Okay. That's why a lot of times you hear people who are studying listening to music because we naturally multitask. But the younger the generation, the more they multitask because more things are being introduced. And so what the younger generation has to understand is that we have to listen more.
Is that good or bad, though?
What? Which one?
That you guys are able to multitask, and when me as a parent come in and I'm trying to get your attention, but I see but you're steadily typing.
It, depending on the circumstance, can be both. Because, like I said, we have to fidget a lot. And that phone is
have to fidget a lot.
Correct, because there's so much going on around us, so many distractions in this world that weren't back then and 30 years ago. So, like, you have TVs going on, advertisements, papers, magazines, so many visual things that are going on. You have to, if you have just two things going on, it's like you freeze up as a young person because you need more going on. So, like, to answer your question, it can be both good and bad. If we're applying it to certain things, like I'll take myself, for example, I'll speak for myself. If I'm applying that multitasking to certain things because I want multiple sources of income.
Gotcha.
So if I can apply that to multiple things that are beneficial, then yes, it's a good thing. But if it's something that leads to disrespect or confrontation, then obviously that's not a good thing to deal with.
Gotcha. Wonderful, man. I was thoroughly impressed with your conversation earlier. I'm even more impressed now, and I thank you for coming on. We've got a few more minutes before we get out of here.
Okay.
What is it that you would want to leave our viewers with? If there's any one thing in particular, let's just say you talk to individuals that are in your age range that may be listening in tonight. What would you tell them?
Always have an open mindset, and a closed mindset leads to a closed wallet, essentially. Because if you close your mind off, then there's no way for you to try new things. Because everybody thinks that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, even a new dog. So you have to have an open mindset. If someone's coming to you with an idea that they are very passionate about, take the time out to listen to them, because you don't know what they're going through. That person may only speak to you about that one thing, and if you shut them off, now they're not going to go out and try new things. So it's just always have an open mindset. That goes to both young viewers and older viewers as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this job that you have, what are you doing?
I am a product specialist at Heritage Subaru in Owings Mills. Essentially what I do is teach or educate people who recently purchased a car on the technology in the car, what buttons do what, how to pair their phone with that. And
You're a car guy.
Correct.
You love cars, like cars.
Correct.
Okay.
Explains my car.
Is that something that you're going to be doing long term?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I told you earlier that by the end of the summer, I'm trying to have 10 sources of income.
10 sources of income.
Correct. By the time I'm 25, I plan to have at least 15 to 20. One of those is I want to have a car club. I saw the model in New York where essentially it is a fleet of cars. And essentially you can have a membership with that car or with that club, and essentially just basically rent out that car for a certain time period based on your membership, and you get certain tiers of cars. So I want to try to do that and incorporate that into my lifestyle.
A car club where you're renting cars?
Essentially, yes.
So when I think of a car club, I'm thinking of Corvettes and
exotic car club. Yes.
Exotic car clubs.
That's what I'm trying.
But you want to own all of these cars? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. I want to control all those cars. You never want to own things. You don't want to own a house. You don't want to own a car. But you want to be in control. The reason that Trump is able to hide his tax reports is because he doesn't own anything. Yet you see everything in his supposed name. It's not. It's in his trust name. The trust that he has is named Trump. So if everything is in the trust name, he's the one managing all those assets. So to answer your question, I want to manage the assets of those cars.
What? So help me understand. Let's go a little bit deeper. When I think of a car club, I'm thinking of individuals in the community who have the same type of vehicle. Maybe they invest a bunch of money into it and they jazz the car up, and then the club meets and you guys go riding and meet up somewhere and put on a little show in the parking lot. Is that what you're referring to?
No. So the model that is in New York is they have certain cars based on tiers. So you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and then you can pay the membership fee for that tier, and then you get certain access to those cars. Now you can have that car for the weekend or whatever have you. And let's say if it's tier 1 is a Corvette, tier 2 is a Porsche, tier 3 is a Maybach. And so you just get access to those cars. The car clubs that you're talking about, I understand, because they used to have them at the Boulevard Cap Center all the time, where they meet up and they have like Corvette clubs. So that's one specific car. I want to be able to manage a larger or broader spectrum of cars.
Does that mean that you have to have access to those cars, i.e. ownership of some sort?
Correct.
Okay. So you do want to own those vehicles?
In trust us, yes.
In trust.
Correct.
And that's an ideal way of doing it, because I know I'm a real estate investor, and none of my properties are in my name.
They're in the business name.
And I create a separate LLC for each rental property.
That's another thing. You want to try to get away from LLCs, because the minute you do an LLC, you're giving it over to the state. And they're basically allowing you to use that asset for your benefit, which is why you have to pay taxes on it. So what you want to do is kind of form a foreign trust, foreign to the U.S., so that they can't meddle with those assets. The same way that the U.S. can't go into to France or to African country and say that person owes us money. They can't do it. It's called sovereignty. So you want to form a trust that's foreign to the U.S. and then get a CPN, and a CPN is any 9-digit number that's instead of the social. You can have an EIN, you can have an estate number, can do it as well. So you want to get those and have those CPNs manage everything. So on paper, you're hands off because everything is foreign. So now they can't come in and supposedly tax that, because I'm not saying don't pay taxes.
Sure.
Don't evade taxes, avoid taxes, taxable events, essentially.
Because there are definitely loopholes which allows a lot of the wealthy to get around
Exactly.
and do the things. And those are the things and those are the things that we here at In the End We Win with Curtis attempts to bring to the forefront, so that you guys, you all, can use this information for your own welfare and your own benefit. So I think that's a great stopping point, man. I really appreciate you for coming in.
Appreciate it.
And
could I say one thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If anybody ever wants to contact me or my team, you can always do so by emailing millticketgroup@gmail. That's
Meal ticket?
Correct. Mill.
Mill.
Yep. MILLTICKET GROUP @gmail. Kind of like that's the $1 million ticket.
Okay. Oh, okay. Not like meal ticket. Like
No.
The meal ticket. Okay. So millticketgroup.com. MILLTICKETGROUP
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
Correct.
Okay. Meal ticket. Yeah. Are there any phone numbers or anything?
Not right now, because
No.
we kind of try to, because we have personal phones, so we kind of try to limit the amount of people. But we'll always answer emails. Because we all have access to one email, so we can always do that as well.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Are your partners watching tonight?
Yes, they are.
Good. Excellent. Hey, partners. So I thought it was interesting as business professionals, as private business owners. I think that there are some things that you could have heard tonight that, if nothing else, will challenge you to at least do the research on, to perhaps operate your business a little bit more effectively, a little bit more efficiently, and perhaps utilizing what we always have known to be out there, which are these loopholes. And at one point, it was taboo, especially in the black community, to file bankrupt. Well, I learned that it wasn't taboo, and that you can use it effectively.
Correct.
I've had a number of rental estate properties, and when the market crashed, I unfortunately chose that method and came out on the other side and washed my hands of everything. Actually, because I read the book that our current president had written, and that's where I learned that lesson.
I don't agree with a lot of stuff he says, but Trump is a very smart man in what he does.
In some respects, and we're not going to go too far into
Correct.
But I appreciate you all for tuning in tonight. Once again, this is In the End We Win, and we look forward to seeing you on next week. Now, as a matter of fact, next week's show, I am going to air a recorded show, because next week is Memorial Day. My son is home from college, and I'd like to spend time with the family. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. Next week, it will be a recorded show, so please do not attempt to call in, but you please, by all means, please tune in 8:15 next week on VoxWave.com. That's VOXWAV.com. And I am Curtis. Thank you. Good night. Have a good evening. My man.